Malagor is a fairly unusual choice these days, let alone for the Beastmen in Domination. However, I really do like the pick in this specific matchup. Today, Sultan, aka Glorious Feeder, is going to be taking his Malagor against Kislev, and given Kislev's lack of flying and lack of flying control, I actually really like this. Malagor is insanely fast. Although in Domination he can't capture, he can certainly fly around to different parts of the battlefield and contribute. He's got Mantle of Garok here. Penumbral Pendulum, still very good for Domination, even after the nerfs early in Warhammer 3's cycle. Flock of Doom as well. Of course, decent combat stats, like I said, blazing fast speed, 121 up in the air, decent attack and defense, definitely lack of armor, as is typical of Beastmen, but good weapon strength and excellent charge as well. For the rest of the army here, he's got a Cygor up front, which I love that pick, also on this map against Kislev in Domination. We've got some Ungor Spearman herds. One issue with Beastmen is that Ungor's count is expendable and have pretty poor capture weight, and as a result, you're forced into other units, and you just generally have a lack of good defensive infantry. You've got Best Gore, which are great on offense, do have some armor, but are going to wilt in sustained combat. Looks like a Wargore on foot as well, a couple of Razorgore herds. And let's take a look at the Kislev starting army here. We've got Boris Ursus and a Patriarch. Armored Kossars spread around. Yeah, a whole bunch of Armored Kossars. Makes sense. Let's take a look at the reserves as well. For the Beastmen's reserves, we've got a Gorbul, a single Minotaur with great weapons, a regular anti-infantry Minotaur, a single Razorgore Chariot, a Centaur, another Razorgore Herd, two Gore Herds with shields, a single Harpy, and two Ungor Raiders. For Kislev's reserves, we've got an Frost Maiden, Lore of Tempest, a single Ice Guard with swords, two Streltsy, two Armored Kossars with great weapons, two Kossars with spears, two Kossovite Dervishes, one Winged Lancer, and one Griffin Legion. Getting back to it, in the starting army also for Kislev goes these Oath Brothers of Tor. It's a little bit of overkill for anti-large AP magic damage, in my opinion. I mean, definitely something like Torox is quite scary, but I would think that Boris would be enough, especially with the Patriarch, just with the two of them to take down. I think this is a little bit of overkill. Might have been nice to have some more width here. Maybe even like or a Zargard with great weapons, or some nice armor-piercing anti-infantry. Hard to say, but right now the Cygor is raining some shots down on these Armored Kossars. They're not the most expensive unit to be getting hit by the Cygor, but they're not ridiculously cheap either. Certainly, their missile attacks are going to be great against the low armor of Beastmen, but Malagor showing his skill there, dodging those pistol shots up in the air, using his wings to great effect. Malagor is definitely an interesting character in that he's kind of a hybrid fighter caster. The lack of armor really will come back to haunt him in many ways, and low HP as well is definitely a hindrance. But as long as you can avoid taking a bad engagement with him, definitely can be quite good. And again, against Kislev, where they have a general lack of flying, definitely a strong possibility. Razorgore herds charging in on the center objective. We've got the Ungors charging as well, with Bestgors following up, so a nice big engagement here in the center of Death's Pass. Kislev defending the Northlands against the foul Beastmen. Nice Penumbral Pendulum there. Does a little bit of friendly fire on those Razorgore herds, but still forces them into an enrage. I love the pick of Razorgore herds for Beastmen as a little bit of cheap mobility with great armor piercing, great mass and just presence as well. Can be very cost effective at their current price. They've always been just generally very cost effective, but especially in Domination, even though they don't have Vanguard, which many Beastmen units do. Anyway, Ungor Spearman Herd capturing very slowly over here on the side. Center belongs to the Beasts as well, and over here, these Ungor Spearman Herd were able to momentarily block the Armored Kossars from getting onto the objective, but the Armored Kossars having taken some damage from the Cygor, I think they should still be capturing that. I'm not sure. A little blizzard going off here in the center. Interesting to see that from the lore of Tempest coming out from reserves for Kislev. The Hawks of Misha, pretty good spell against low armor factions. Of course, Beastmen falling into that. Not going to do a ton to the Bestigor, but still will help contribute a little bit. We've got the Minotaurs with great weapons coming out to play against these Winged Lancers and Boris, the Oath Brothers. So definitely some elite anti-large AP, and All the pistols and archers should turn and fire at this point. We've got a few more Kossars with spears, some more armored Kossars. Great weapons coming out right now as well. So all of this range for Kislev right now should just all, you know, get into a big group and focus fire on those Minotaurs. We've got some chariots out for the Beastmen as well, though. Razorgore is running some great disruption here, moving through those Kislev units, not allowing them to use their pistols to fire in. The Minotaurs are also pulling back slightly, sensing quite a bit of danger from range units, which there are a lot of kind of cheap focus range units which can do a lot of damage, right? Anyway, Boris overextending a little bit is going to be subject to the Minotaurs as they charge in. Try and get a little bit of a surround. They don't get that effective of a surround because they're attack animations, but still definitely getting some effective damage. Oath Brothers charge in. The Ungor Spearmen are going to try and block them as best they can, but I mean, they are just Ungor Spearmen after all. Speaking of which, have been routed over on the far side. Kislev claims that objective, and in the near term for the Beastmen here, on their kind of home objective, they're defending still for the time being. The Vestigor herd overextending a little bit, chasing some Kossars with spears. They're going to get focused down by those archers and pistols and whatnot. That does mean, though, that the Minotaurs end up getting a decent engagement here. Mantle of Garok puts them up to 166 weapon strength. Massive melee attack buff there as well. Just did a huge amount of damage to those Oath Brothers. Let's see, gold damage value-wise, that puts them just about paying for themselves. Still a little bit short of what you would want to see in terms of raw damage output, but certainly we'll see if that's tactically enough to win out on this fight. Right now, the Patriarch is fighting away from the Bear Blob, which is preventing them from getting effective healing, but this whole time, oh man, Cygor might have got a little bit of friendly fire there on that chariot, but been just raining in, got 81 kills already, 600 damage value. It's going to have to be careful about hitting maybe more dense blobs, but of course the Cygor can also fight in melee towards the late game and contribute some extra value there as well. But looks like we've got Gorbel. Malagor himself risking it for the biscuit, charges down. He does count as infantry size, keep that in mind, as he is flapping about on his wings in the air. Similar to someone like Valkia or Azazel, he counts as infantry size, which means he's not going to be subject to the bonus versus large of Boris and his knights. Boris just fully juiced up, though, with Tor's Battle Hymn and everything going off right now. Malagor very wisely just nopes out of that engagement for the time being and leaves Gorbel and the Goreherds here to do the work. Goreherds with shields. Decent unit. They have good capture weight, good charge bonus. Overall, all right offensive stats. I mean, charge bonus is definitely very good. Not the best defensive stats, but the Vanguard does mean that they can at least get to an objective quickly, even if they can't necessarily hold it down wildly effectively. But Gorbel looks like he's getting soloed out by multiple characters there, which is not great. Fire Blood pops on something. Is that the caster? I'm not really sure, but oh no, it's just stand your ground. Anyway, but these characters, again, fighting away from the objective. Right now, it doesn't really matter because Kislev has decisive control here. But we've also got Kislev making a push over on this far side. Some Kossovite dervishes coming over. Kossar spears, armored Kossars. So those Ungor Spearmen herd getting heavily outvalued there. No doubt we'll lose that fight. But let's go over to the more important fight here. As Boris holds out, suddenly the tables have turned against him. Not really sure what happened there. I'm guessing maybe a Mantle of Garok here on Gorbel, Axe of Men, and I also don't see any support units for Kislev. So, yeah, evidently the Patriarch must have got murdered there. Great support from these Razorgore herds as well. Kind of screen out and push the Frost Maiden away. They were able to rout off the tattered Oath Brothers there. So, actually, no, the Patriarch is away here. Okay, so critical error for Kislev as the Patriarch gets caught up over chasing the Wargore, and as a result isn't healing Boris and the Bear Blob. They end up getting taken out by the Gorbel and supporting Razorgore herds. So a big loss for the Kislev player here for sure. Army damage value wise, they're pretty much neck and neck still though, so certainly anyone's game at this point. Got some more Ungor Spearman herd fighting in the periphery, or at least advancing on that position there. Kislev just now besting this other Ungor Spear herd, sees that position. Let's get back into the center here. Cygor throwing rocks in a more direct fashion. Still missing clean, though. And, yeah, should be getting some more value. Let's check in on the kill count, up to 103 kills. Still not that great a value at the end of the day, but has a few more shots to redeem himself, and then is going to have to do it the old-fashioned way in melee. But it looks like we've got some Griffin Legion coming out to try and counteract. They definitely have the elite charge bonus. Deal with something like Razorgore Herd, only 45 armor, 19 defense, means they'll take huge damage from that charge. They'll dish some serious damage in return, but definitely Griffin Legion doing a decent job. Another Blizzard comes out as well, just trying to inflict the leadership debuff, I guess, to rout these Razorgore Herd. Not sure about that. Just in terms of raw winds of magic usage, you probably would have routed them anyway. Maybe better to just save that, but I don't really know in terms of spell composition. Yeah, I mean, maybe you just save for more Hailstorms into the late game, but I'm not really sure at this point what the best choice would be. I'm going to be fully honest with you. I was going to say Death Frost might not be a bad idea for Beastmen. I mean, Morgar would be able to resist it, but given that the kind of meta right now for Beastmen, if you can say that there even is one, is definitely to take Aurochs. Death Frost might be useful, because Death Frost is single target damage, right? I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. I should probably stop, because I don't actually remember 100%. But anyway, Malagor charges in there, gets a nice rear charge on those Winged Lancers. Patriarch gets Boris resummoned, so he gets another chance to try and defend, and comes and, you know, delivers vengeance against the Gorbel. So there we go, Patriarch redeeming himself, but the Beastmen are still streaming through with more armor-piercing troops, and, I mean, certainly the best Gore and the Razorgore Herd should be able to deal with all these tattered Kossars. Even the Griffin Legion and whatnot, they're gonna struggle just because they're all very tattered at this point, so really it's up to Boris and the Patriarch here. It may have ultimately been a mistake for the Kislev player to resummon Boris instead of just going for more width because of the capture weight situation in the late game. I mean, we'll see. Maybe Kislev will be able to win this decisively and recapture, but right now, Cygor comes in, gets a nice tear route on those Kossar spears. Other armored Kossars just getting ping-ponged around by Bestigor and Razorgore Herds as well, so nice interception on these Dervishes. And the Shard Blade comes out from Boris, but doesn't really hit anyone, so meanwhile, over on the far side, Malagor's just continuing to clean up these armored Kossars, just split push on the sides, then can easily reposition over to another area. Right now, Sultan here not really pushing at all on this number 3 objective, just kind of biding his time for the time being, building up some more supply here. Kislev coming in with some more armored Kossars, just trying to keep capture weight, keep bodies on that center objective, but I mean, unfortunately, I still, even with the mod, I can't see the reinforcement pools for both players, which would be really nice, but if I could see what he has off of cooldown, I mean, we could kind of judge based on Boris's value, if you were to perhaps guess that into, you know, however many units you could take, like actual multi-model units. I also think that the Kislev build here just needed a little bit more cavalry. I mean, Boris is certainly very good, but I think the Oath Brothers, like I said, were a little bit of overkill. I think it'd be better to just have more numbers of cheaper cavalry. Certainly Winged Lancers can be very effective here. Even the Kossar Dervishes, the Horse Archers too, believe it or not, I think are quite nice in this matchup, given they have decent stats to try and contest, and they also outrange Centaurs and Ungor Raiders. Not that it matters too much on this specific map. Maybe I wouldn't take them on this map, but certainly in general in this matchup, in land battles and on more open maps like Battle for Itza, or certainly Black Ark. I would definitely take Horse Archers in this matchup on Black Ark. But anyway, Boris and his characters making their final stand, duking it out, and definitely beating the crap out of the Cygor, but it's still, you know, not able to amass enough capture weight to actually get that objective back. And right now, Sultan is just reaping a ton of victory tickets, actually technically slightly behind still with 860 versus 900, but time to win is now down close to 5 minutes at 300 seconds. So let's see. There's still quite a bit of battle time left, obviously. Both players have a chance to make some plays here, but Kossar Spears kind of getting pulled a little bit forward away from the objective. by those Razorgore herds earlier does mean that the Gore herds will be able to advance. Those armored Kossars don't have enough pistol rounds to really defend themselves effectively at this point. I'm not sure. I think the Gore herds will probably just win that outright, but we'll have to check back on that and see. Boris also still defending, beats up the Cygor, but Malagor victorious over on the side. Comes back up over to try and just do whatever he can here. Finds an isolated Patriarch and decides, you know what, I've had enough of your healing shenanigans. Please, if you could just be dismissed here, get you off the battlefield, that would be very nice. Nice overwatch here from these armored Kossars, though Malagor's got to be careful not to take too much damage. Both of these units probably could try and focus in, but Razorgore herds and the Ungor Spearmen are moving to screen. Valiant Pigs take some bullets in the face for their Crow Lord. He's going to pop back up into the air and flap on away. Could have perhaps stayed the course against the Patriarch, but it's definitely dangerous with Boris and the Frost Maiden still lurking. Kislev finally is able to amass enough capture weight with the armored Kossars, and now some winged lancers scything in as well to seize this objective. But just in time, the Gore herds over here are finishing off these armored Kossars. They are actually winning, so in basically clean 1v1 without any pistol shots, the Gore herds with shields do win against the armored Kossars with great weapons especially. Kind of makes sense due to their lower melee defense, but some Minotaurs are coming over. Anti-infantry Minotaurs to make sure, just really 100% for sure, Kislev loses that fight. And as long as he can retake that objective in time, he should be able to just 2-cap for the win. But let's see, Bestigor herd holding valiantly against these armored Kossars, made their way all the way up and around the battlefield just to face off against Kislev's forces here. The armored Kossars trading pretty badly, let's be honest. But then the Griffin Legion come in to save the day, even charging through the back of their own men there. Get a decent enough charge, and certainly with the pistol shots, the armor piercing damage, the charge damage, should be enough to push back those Bestigor herds. But you can see here Malagor is reinforcing rapidly with some Ungors and Gores rushing in as well to try and make sure they maintain that objective. It's pretty critical at this point. Kislev has very good control of the center with those armored Kossars. They've used up their ammunition, but Boris and the cast are still so healthy. Over here, Beastmen have a decisive advantage, but a lot of it's going to come down to this objective, this side objective engagement here. Winged Lancers charging through, hitting Ungor Spearmen. I mean, they get a good charge initially, but it is going to be a very cost-effective trade for Ungor Spearmen herd. 26 attack, 12 bonus versus large for a unit this cheap means they have a pretty good chance to hit against the 28 defense of the Winged Lancers. And certainly they should be able to at least hold off, if not win. Crowfather here descends from the sky, intercepts the armored Kossars, beats a few of them up, and kind of forces them into a position where they can perhaps be rear charged by these Gore herds and these Ungors and such, but more importantly, just holds ground for long enough. Not that he can actually hold any capture weight here, but just in terms of, you know, continuing to deal damage, interrupting. The Bestigor herd also blocking up a whole bunch of units, now routing, but hopefully we're able to hold for enough time. Let's see, there's a little over 2 minutes left to win for glorious Sultan Feeder here. But let's see, these Minotaurs and Gore herds could activate and perhaps try and chase towards the center. Now that Boris is repositioned to this side objective here, perhaps they have an opportunity to try and retake this, but let's see. Gonna be very, very close. And these Ungors, we've got more Razorgore herds down here as well, and even more pigs advancing, reinforcing. With the Gore herds, the Razorgores in tandem, they're able to beat down these Winged Lancers in a sustained combat. Same thing, again, we see that the armored Kossars' lack of melee attack and defense kind of comes back to haunt them. I mean, they are on par with any other sort of mid-tier great weapon units on that front. You add in the value of their pistol attack, and they're definitely a formidable unit, but certainly in a grind fest like this, you've got these Razorgore herds with great weapon strength. Only 28 attack, you might think, but again, still not that great a defense. 34 defense here, so it's still a good enough hit chance. And when they're kind of saturated in on top of the Gore herds like this, the Gore herds are going to be taking many of the hits and also dishing hits. So it's just rough engagement for Kislev. Boris can only do so much. He's only in one place at a time. And capture weight-wise, Beastmen can just reinforce here very rapidly, utilizing that superior mobility. Kislev, meanwhile, content to just hold this center, not really try and push this side here. Minotaurs and Gorherds is certainly a scary force to try and deal with, but Kislev instead just kind of putting all the eggs in this side basket here, desperately trying to claim this objective. But the Beastmen are holding. Man, didn't think I'd ever say those words, but yeah, the Beastmen are able to at least temporarily defend this objective for long enough to take home the win. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. Big thanks to Glorious Feeder, aka Sultan, for sending that one in. And it's a beaut, I have to say. Love me some quality Beastmen gameplay. It's not a faction I feature super often on the channel, but I do have a soft spot in my heart for them. Very fun play style, and can be very good in the hands of a skilled player. Here, I like to see this Malagor kind of beating up the meta Boris Bear Blob build. Armored Kossars are very cost effective, it must be said. Most of them pay for themselves twice, which is what you would like to see. Boris also pays for himself like 1.5 times, which is probably just about right there. Patriarch, unfortunately, wasn't able to save Boris the first time around, though, so arguably did fail at his objective. The Armored Kossars can come in, contribute decently as well. Cavalry, though, this is why I say maybe you just need to go heavy on the Winged Lancers here. They did such a great job considering their cheap costs, performing just as well as Griffin Legion. I think they were resummoned maybe twice, maybe 3 times, but even still, I mean, twice is good enough for them to pay for themselves. Kossars with Spears, also a decent enough choice. I mean, yeah, I would probably drop the Streltsy. We saw here even a build with a reasonable amount of armor by Beastmen standards, and still the Streltsy weren't deployed, so another one. And then again, these Oath Brothers, they ended up being a pretty big kind of wet noodle, heavy wet noodle, and as they could have been swapped out, I think just 1-to-1 for like two Winged Lancers. Anyway, on the Beastman's side, love to see some great Cygor value. Pays for itself at the end of the day. The Best Warherd also pay for themselves twice in one case, which is nice to see considering they were summoned twice. Razor Warherds, wildly cost effective. Definitely one of the Beastman's best units, even still to this day, in all game modes, except maybe campaign, arguably. But anyway, yeah, the Chariots tactically did some really nice disruption. Didn't quite get enough damage to pay for themselves. Same thing with these Minotaurs, but it's just kind of combined arms Beastmen. Multi-rush attack from different directions. You know, constant reinforcement with waves of hard-hitting mobile troops. It's very, very fun. Love to see that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.